Is that good? Yeah. I've never been double mic'd before. This is fun. Oop. Okay, that works. Oh, come on. Strange.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris Corriere. I'm the host for the Complexity SRE track here. Glad to see y'all back today, or if today is your first day, welcome. I'm a complexity scientist by trade, very excited to have this track here at Devopsdays Atlanta, and I'm really excited for Ajuna's talk on sustainable incident management. So let's hear it for Ajuna, everybody.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. I'm having a streak of tech issues. Last week I gave a talk and my lapel mic stopped working. This week my clicker doesn't have batteries and my spare batteries aren't working too. So, you have a clicker for me? Hey, pays to have friends. The whole thing. I no longer trust my clicker.
You good?
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. On. It's me. I'm the drama. I am the reason the clickers don't work today. Okay, take 3. Thank you, friend. Right. These are all the same type of clicker somehow, but. Okay. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Come on. It's telling me to.
Do you have to close and reopen?
No, what's it called?
There you go.
There we go. Hey, we made it, friends. Okay, cool. So welcome to my talk on sustainable incident management. It's going to be a very open conversation talk in some ways because I don't have all the answers on how to make your incident management sustainable because it's different for everyone. But I'll start off by introducing myself and we'll go into those topics more. So my name is Ajuna Kiaruzi. I work at Datadog in developer relations. In my free time, I love working with new folks in tech. I mentor for an organization called AfriCode, which is focused on making sure Africans in tech are successful. It's close to my heart because I'm from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, though I currently live here in Atlanta. Other things I love to do in my free time is to play with my hands, be away from screens, just be bad at something. So I knit really badly, I sew really badly. I'm getting better at puzzles, so working my way up. I really like socks, so if you're a vendor here and I've come to your booth, it was for socks. And to get to know y'all, of course, I promise, but yes. So I'd love to start off with a scenario. So picture it, you're on call, you're having a good time, you know, an appropriately good amount of time for being on call. Maybe you're reading, maybe you're dancing, maybe you're about to go to sleep, and then you get paged. And hopefully it's not this violent, and it's something something that's happened to you before, but either way, you're up and you have to figure out what's going on. So generally, then you start what is the incident management process. So I define an incident as being an unexpected outage, right? A degradation of service in some way. And incident management as the process of effectively responding to this outage and incident in your service with minimal further disruption to your end users. So if you're on call, you get paged, some system detected that something was down and that you were the right person to work on it. You went in, found out it was an actual incident, declared it, went through the process of finding out what's going on, mitigating the impact, stabilizing things, rolling back changes, rolling forward changes. And either way, you resolve the incident, hopefully maybe with a team, but maybe by yourself if it was smaller. And then you wrap it up. You have some sort of review or postmortem process, you try to learn from it, and then you do it again. And maybe again, and maybe again. I love this scene. It said, we'll do it again, but then I'll cry. Hopefully you're not actually crying and it's not that bad, but generally just speaking of how it can be stressful to be on call and to handle incidents. So going back to the topic of sustainable incident management, I love thinking of definitions. What does sustainable mean? So I went to the dictionary and I got this definition, and there are a lot of them, but I mean the second one here, which states that sustainable is pertaining to a system that maintains its own viability by using techniques that allow for continual reuse. So I wanted us to think about sustainability in incident management in a way that makes it easier for the incident responders to continue to use the incident management techniques and to continue to want to be incident responders. As it pertains, right? You might want a career change, that's totally cool, but what I don't want, I mean, I did a career change myself, so I get it. But what I don't want is for someone to get so burnt out by being an incident responder that they lose joy for it. And can we do this? The question I was thinking about here is, I think so. We borrow a lot about modern IT or tech incident management from other resources, and they've managed to work on this problem of making it successful. There are other people who are incident responders and for higher stakes incidents, right? We can think of firefighting, we can think of medical health professionals, people who work in some sort of engineering or nuclear plant, and they do also have incidents and they respond to them, and they have done a little bit more research than we have on what you need to do to make sure that you can continue doing it. So borrowing from the first one of those, firefighting, I wanted to go into the history of incident management, and I found that actually some of the techniques do come from firefighting. So there was a fire in California. They've been going on for a long time. The wildfires are really crazy there. And this one in the 1970s was called the Laguna Fire. So it happened for 12 days, and sadly it had loss of life. I think about 16 people died, which was very devastating. And it was really hard to figure out why it burnt and was so extreme for so long. Until the 2000s, it was California's third worst fire. So after the fire, the people in charge, the fire chiefs all met and did research to figure out what went wrong. And they found out that there wasn't a lack of resources in any way. The problem was a lack of coordination. The fire was so large that it spread over 500 different agencies, and they just weren't able to communicate with each other, literally, because they didn't have the same radio frequencies, but they also didn't use the same terminologies. They didn't use the same actual equipment. So in order to coordinate response, there was very minimal coordination happening between the agencies. So they sat down and tried to figure out, what do we need to do? And they made this organization called FireScope. So FireScope stands for the Firefighting Resources of Southern California, Organized for Potential Emergencies. And I'm glad it fits as FireScope, because I could not say that altogether multiple times. But generally, they came out and thought about what went wrong with incident management. And they found out that there was a lack of accountability. There was poor communications, as I said, but other issues was there was a hierarchy, but it was hard to know who reports to who when it has such a breadth of impact. There was also a lot of freelancing because people weren't getting the right information, so they just kind of did whatever with all the best intentions, but that means there was a lot of duplication of effort. So with no common coordination, technology and terminology, the incident just went on for longer. So they came up with the Instant Command System, which you might have heard of before if you have worked on a tech incident, because we have also used this. So the Instant Command System has been adopted since, and it was also partially influenced by other firefighters fighting wildfires in Arizona, and it has been adapted to different spaces now. But what it says, it's a standardized approach to the command, control, and coordination of emergency response. So it creates a common hierarchy in which responders from multiple agencies can be effective. So the main part of the Instant Command System is there's an incident commander. They lead the incident. They're in charge. Their actual role or title doesn't matter. They've been trained to handle incidents. And the other core part of an Instant Command System is everyone reports to one person. So, and that person maybe reports to one other person or directly to the incident commander, which means that you should be getting your flow of information just from that individual or the incident commander themselves, right? That means that there isn't any, you heard this from another person, so you don't know what to do. And this has been adapted with more information from different incidents, including 9/11, to work on a national scale for our National Incident Management Service. And obviously it's been adapted for tech, but other countries have also adapted a version of this for their national incident management and for their federal emergency management and so forth. So firefighters did it. They have a lot more, there's a lot more of them, I will say. They're needed in larger scale incidents in a lot of ways. However, if we've borrowed the Instant Command System, I would like to think we can also borrow other lessons about how to manage burnout and how to find pain points of what's going on. If you do want to kind of get deeper into how firefighting and incident management are related and different ways you can use other parts of fire services and fire safety, there's an SRE Con talk by Tanya Riley, which is the history of fire escapes, and she goes in and says all the differences of like how to correlate fire codes to how actual code in tech works and all of that, and I love that talk. So if you do want to know more about that aspect, please do check her out. So there's a lot of commonalities for incidents, right? We've decided that there's incident command, like I said, but there's other parts. They're always unexpected. The time matters. You have to respond quickly because you might literally be losing money. The situation isn't perfectly understood at the start, so you're not able to be like, oh, it's definitely DNS, right? It'll be the one time it's not. And the resources will change over time. You'll have new folks join the team, and you'll have to train them even during the actual incident, and you'll have folks leave. If it's a longer scale incident, you're gonna pass the buck of who is in charge of the incident as an incident commander or even the incident responders, because people do need to sleep, right? So they're constantly changing. So going back to the idea of sustainable incident management, there isn't a lot of information of how it's impacted folks. So the one that I found was this SRE report in 2019 published by Catchpoint, and it highlights different focus areas that could be for improvement. So on the left, we have the number of people on call, and these are different SREs and incident responders who said on their SRE team, on average, how many people are actually on call that they work with. And as you can see, mostly it's in the middle, classic histogram, of either 2 to 5 or 6 to 10. But there were folks who were on call by themselves, or there was no one on call, or there was over 100 people on call, which that's also can be quite challenging. On the right, we also have a chart that says, do you face stress due to incident resolution? And almost 80% of people said yes. So clearly there are areas of stress built into incident response. And what are the pain points that we find here, right? What are your pain points? My back hurts, but that's not related. But some of this does change based on you in your organization. The pain points you have as a company where there's 2 of you who write code, so you're the only 2 on call, but you hopefully know the system really well, so you can find out exactly what's going on, and coordinating with 2 people may be easier. But then it's just you 2, right? Always on call, so that's also stressful. If you are a slightly more scaled up business, there might be a few dozen of you who know the system, but then is there any silos of information? How do you know what's going on? Is there duplication of effort? Have you gotten to the place where you have defined incident response principles? Do you know how to coordinate in the same channels? And then we have behemoths. I was a Google SRE. I worked with thousands of other Google SREs, though not at the same time on an incident, but we were split into groups, right? So there was a defined incident response. The Google incident response, I think it's called IMAG, Incident Management at Google, has been adapted by other places. However, then there are other challenges. When you are a company that's quite large, different people might do incident response differently, even with a notified playbook. Maybe some folks have transferred to a different technology, and some folks haven't. I worked internally to Google on what we called core incident response. I worked on products that Google used that ran on Google, and we did incident response differently to folks who did production because they were more stressed, I'll be honest. I had the chiller side of the things. We made sure that the computers and the network that Google engineers ran on worked well, but making sure that the billions of people who use Google is a very different scale. So there are differences in these different organizations too. So I'd love to hear from you. What are your pain points? I'm trying this for the first time, so please be patient with me. But I have a Slido, so sli.do. It asks you for a code, so I have Arjuna-ATL22. And I'd love to hear what are your pain points. There's a word cloud, so it's a question you put in what your pain points are from being an incident responder. You can put in multiple of them. So I'll just give you like a minute to do that. But if I do move on and you haven't finished your thought, I'll have the link to the Slido at the bottom left of the following couple slides, so you can still sort of catch up. And at the end, I'll show the results of what that looks like. So I wish I had like the Jeopardy music. I won't sing more, sorry. But yeah. Oh, also on the Slido, I do have a Q&A section. So if you do have a question, drop it in there. We might be used to typing our questions coming back from virtual conferences. So if that's more comfortable, please just drop it in there. But I'll also take them from the room if you're here in person. But yeah. I'll take a moment to drink water. And if someone doesn't have a device and just wants to tell me, that's also cool. You can also just hear from the audience, that's fine. The beauty of being in person, right?
Yeah. I have a microphone. I can come to you. Anybody have a pain point they'd like to share?
Sure.
Oh, got one.
Yay.
I love this space. I like the talk.
Oh, thank you.
One of the pain points I found, like I have used like AI ops, right? And it's to look at anomalies in how we work and
Yeah.
how we're supporting and to have interesting events that crop up. AI ops works wonderfully in this space. There's two pain points that I've seen. One is like, if a tree falls in the woods, did it make a sound?
Right.
Right? So if my customer hasn't experienced pain, but the system is broken, it just happened, at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? How do you communicate? How do we talk about the definition of what is an incident? Is that an incident? My customer is happy.
Right. We do put incidents in this SLO box. We define a lot of user happiness with SLOs. And if the users are happy, we generally do feel good. But your SLO might still have been broken. So I would say that maybe that's where you go off of it. But there's a lot of range. I love the idea of the tree falls in the forest. And it is kind of hard. You still have to work on it. It's possible it could get worse. So
Yeah, I might summarize the pain points around user impact. Is it an impactful incident? Or are we just getting paged because something's technically broken?
absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. One more? Yeah?
One more. All right. So my other pain point is
Sure.
on the other end of the umbrella. We found some pain. We addressed the pain. But the way that we addressed it was a goal of getting the customer up and running fast.
Okay.
As a result, we bounced the box, so to speak. In other words, we didn't go after the root cause. We just got the customer up and running again. And now I've actually hit this fork in the road in incident management. There needs to be, maybe I need to do a patch, and this patch is going to take time. Maybe it's a full-blown project.
Okay.
How do you discern, how do you handle that fork in the road?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty much, are we accepting the technical debt or not? 'Cause-
Absolutely. Technical debt is a huge pain point for instant response. Yeah. We can talk more about that, but yeah, thank you.
Any other pain points, Waldo?
Interruptions from stakeholders
Yes.
who want to know status while I'm trying to make with the keyboard.
Yes. We love to think that the instant command system will protect you fully from that, but it works as an ideal, right? Not in real life.
There's no fighting in the war room, right?
Yeah.
Any other pain points? Anybody else got anything to share?
Thanks for sharing. So I'll do a couple that I thought of in advance, and then we can see how to go. And I'd love to continue this conversation too, whether virtually or in an open space later. We can totally figure it out. But one pain point that I found was just the idea of being on call, right? The stress of knowing that you have to respond to an incident is a lot. You change your plans around it. You hope that it's not too regular. I was on call about once a month, which I thought was okay. But what helped was I was only on call for 12 hours. And that was magical for me because then I had at least 12 hours to do all the things that I had not enough cognitive time to do, or you're too worried to do for those 12 hours. Like sleep soundly, because you know someone else is on call. So this is definitely an area for potential pain. Another aspect of on-call is just the on-caller system. Is it going to page you for the right incidents? Is it going to have everyone? Is it going to assign shifts correctly? And that can be really hard to determine what's going on. I would hate to be on a team, and I have been on one before, where 4 of you are on call, but the team has like 7 people. And you're like, why are they chill? Like, even if you are getting hopefully compensated for your extra time on call, it's still an additional load that you don't want just part of the team to share. Another aspect is escalations. We think of this idea of incident severity, and if you haven't heard of incident severity before, it's a way of defining incidents from a SEV 5 to a SEV 1, where SEV 5 is the lowest stage of incident, and a SEV 1 is like, oh my God, everything's on fire. Where you can say user impact falls on a particular stage, your company can decide which one of those, which severity matches to what actions, right? And I've worked in places where a higher scale incident, like a SEV2 or SEV1, means that the VP of engineering will get paged, and there's a certain group of people who are extra trained on incident response who will come help you. So on one side, yay, more help for experienced people. On the other side, oh my God, I'm gonna wake up my VP if I decide it's a SEV2. What if it's not a SEV2? Oh my God. And that can be really hard. And I love the talk yesterday by Leslie that talked about psychological safety in SRE teams, and that part really plays a part here. You want to make sure that you feel safe enough to be able to escalate when necessary so that you can get the help that you need without worrying about any ramifications that could happen there. You don't want to be a hero handling a potential SEV1 incident by yourself because you were too scared to ramp it up, right? The next part is instant communication. The worst part of incidents is when they're really long. You don't want it to be that the information about the incident is in multiple places. So some people are texting over here, some people are on a Zoom call that you didn't get a link to, some people are on Slack or IRC or some other communication channel, maybe something's in email. If it's just not all in one place, it gets really hard, especially when we start handing over incidents because they're so long, because then where does one ramp up? Where can one see the timeline of the incident? And so having a centralized place to put all that information really matters, and keeping up with it. There might be requests to even generate more channels, and that can be up to you. I've heard of like a stakeholders communication, so they're not disturbing you to all those points. But then is there duplication of information? You can decide in your incident as you are responding. If there is an incident commander, there might be other people, like a communications lead, who might be comfortable doing all of that coordination. But without one, then things might get kind of hard quickly. Next, I'd like to talk about postmortems, or the post-incident review. These are important. There are a lot of cases for that. That is a whole separate talk. However, it can be kind of stressful to do them. You've just done an incident for 10 hours. All you want to do is sleep, but you know you should be writing down what happened. If you have to drum up all that information by yourself, that's another pain point, because it's yet another thing you have to do, and it can really feel like the straw that broke the camel's back. Another huge area that I've been thinking a lot about recently is training. How do you train new folks in incident response? How do you make sure that you don't have these silos of information, that new people don't know how to help because the same group of people go in and solve every incident? Because then if they're gone, what happens? Because now we're too scared to do incidents without them, and they're too scared to go on vacation. How do we practice incident response so that when an incident does happen, we know all the right buttons to click, not just that they exist, right? And no clicking escalation means this action and it's okay. All of this does matter, and the more you practice incident response, obviously you get better at it, you know where the additional pain points are. So training and practice really play a huge part. We don't really want to feel like this, right? We're just constantly putting out fires, kind of going left and right. And a lot of people do sort of feel that way. To humanize this a bit more, I found this Reddit post from a DevOps Reddit, what are they called again? The communities? Subreddit, thank you. You don't have to read all the text, I'll just summarize it, but it was someone who had 10 years experience in tech, but they'd been on call with a team of 3, and they were on call basically every other week and were just tired. They were on call 24 hours, and they didn't know what to do, and they were thinking about going from DevOps to just dev. But they loved the idea of being in ops, but it was just they were burnt out. They didn't love it anymore. They just were asking, like, how does your team do it? Are we doing something differently? And that can be a hard question to ask. The last part is really core to my talk, right? Is your job sustainable? So I'll go over really quickly because I realize I've been a bit more loquacious than normal, so I'm running out of time. But yeah, we talked about on-call. The idea of 12-hour cycles or having everyone there could definitely work. But you could also define what that means on your team. It's always a lot easier if you do have a geographically distributed team, right? Because then you can do a follow the sun rotation like we had for the 12 hours. But if you don't, then do you decide if your team will just have people who agree to take over at night and they are understanding that they'll be asleep during the day? There are a lot of other fields that do have I think graveyard shifts is a word for it, right? So you could totally do that, but that's a decision that has to be made by your organization and sort of carry it through. Psychological safety in the incident escalation space, right? So you feel comfortable and know what happens when you do escalate. You have practiced escalating, you know the people who are going to reach out, and they're great folks too. All of this sort of adds up there. Instant communication. I talked about having a centralized place. At my organization, we do use Datadog because we are Datadog, and we have, what's it called? We have an integration with Slack, so when we do declare incident, it makes a Slack channel, which is great because that's the only place that we communicate. But what does that look like for your team? I've worked in places where all instant communication had to happen on IRC, not on any other product, right? Because what if that also went down because you make it Google? Next, postmortems. Being able to automatically generate or pull in as much information as you can is really helpful. If you have your monitors in place, you can plug them in there. If you can pull in information about who was incident commander, when did we declare the incident, when did we say there was user impact, when did we close it, that's a huge part. Just the timeline is a huge part of writing your postmortem, right? As much as we can auto-generate that, does just make your life a lot easier. And then you can generate your timeline too, right? Because this will all go into your postmortem. Next, the instant responder training. This one's a bit harder for me to think about how that automatically looks, but the biggest parts of that is probably different instant responders need different training. You have your folks who just write the code, they're your dev folks, and they're not on call in this case. They probably do need instant responder training because you will need their help actually if their code base has been touched to fix the incident. But what training do they get versus just someone who's new to your company needs to know you actually go to this Slack channel to get information versus the people who are your instant commanders, especially the extra kind of the core incident commander team that I mentioned that gets pulled in for the larger scale incidents. What training do they get? And then how do you just also balance the general instant responder training for your SRE or DevOps org who are on call more often? And how often do you do this training so everyone's on the same page because things do change? All of that does make an impact. I've done disaster recovery tests. They can be both fun and tiring. It really depends. I love it when you do have more of a sort of adventure aspect to them, but definitely testing your systems through disaster recovery or chaos engineering is a huge area of testing your services to make sure to know where the holes are. All of that practice does lead to you knowing more about your system. But yeah, I'm going to end it there, and thank you so much for joining. I'll take some questions either in person or on the Slido, and while I do that, let me pull up the word cloud that y'all generated as well. So thank you for joining.
Let's hear it for Jenna. And is Rain nearby? Oh, yeah. Cool. If you want to start heading on down, make sure we got our next speaker on deck. I want to see the word cloud too. Who's got a question for Jenna? I've got a question if nobody else does.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, could you put me back up for 1 second? Thank you. So this is what our word cloud looked like at the end. Stress is a huge part, burnout, work-life balance, action item follow-up. So we definitely did talk about this. Misuse of pager fatigue is totally real. So there's a lot of these. I'll work on publishing the slides and I'll tweet about it and I'll include the word cloud to that. But thanks so much for your time.
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
Because this is like a really interesting topic to me. But
Yeah.
A lot of conversation I've been in over the past couple of years is the delineation between incident response and incident management.
Ooh.
Do you know where that line is or have any thoughts on it?
The way that I think about it is incident response is a subset of incident management. I think of incident management as all of the things that you do that go into an incident. So from your part of your monitoring system that alerts you, so the alerting system that knows that, that triggers something and then goes to your on-call system to know what the right person to page is, to actually them declaring the incident. That's when incident response happens. And then you close the incident at the end, and then the postmortem is another part. That's not, it is part of, I wouldn't put it in incident response itself. I kind of put it as incident management because it's after the incident was closed. So I think of the whole ecosystem as incident management, and the actual on the computer sort of figuring out and mitigating as incident response. But I'm sure other people feel differently. We're allowed to disagree.
No, I like that thought.
Yeah.
I want to say that some incidents are so minor they can be responded to and not managed, but if we're really following industry practices, we want to do a post-mortem on every incident.
Yeah.
So there is a level of management inevitably with every incident.
Absolutely. I've seen
awesome.
people pre-declare incidents because they were going to have an outage that's known. So if that escalated, then there was already an incident management channel, which I think is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's hear it one more time for June, everybody.
Thank you.
So, and we're back. So next up, we've got Rain with Regress to Progress, a child's mindset for growth. I really like the description of this. I think it's going to be an awesome talk. So, let's hear it for Rain, everybody.
Ta-da! All right. Hello. I forgot my clicker. Really? Oh. I hate being tied to the laptop.
I don't know, it's turned on.
Yeah, it's on. Okay. Who needs notes? Hi, I'm Rain. I work with Cockroach Labs, and I'm in charge of having fun. In case it's not obvious. At Cockroach Labs, they don't need a lot of fun input, just to be clear. But I found that if you have been in the biz, coding, SRE, whatever you're doing for 5, 10, 15, a longer amount of time, you start to forget how to release, how to find joy. And that means that you start to get to this place where you are stagnant, where you can no longer move forward. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do is actually move backwards mentally. Question, who here has kids? Okay. So you have a slight advantage when you have kids, but if you don't have kids, it's all good. We'll go over this. What I'm asking you to do today is kind of embrace your inner child, which if you have kids, you can kind of see and you're like, oh yeah, I was just like that. You may be thinking, my inner child is kind of not great. That's okay, because mine too needs some extra love. But let's just talk about different ways that you can conquer the world by thinking like a child. Effectively, what I'm asking you to do is play, to be resilient, get back up, to embrace that inner unicorn, and to explore your surroundings as if you were a child. This leads to being able to accomplish great things that you may feel stagnant about. So what's first? Play. In case you think this is just a fluffy little talk, I want you all to have fun. There is a center, an institute for research on play. It's full of scientists who actually research this stuff, and which blows my mind, not just for kids, but also for adults. And they effectively prove that by taking a short period of time every day to either sleep, take a nap, just do something that brings you joy, like a walk outside or Sudoku puzzle, very simple things, that actually helps your brain reset and tackle problems more efficiently. Just in case you need some ideas, because this is different for everyone, I've posted a few on the board. Completely unbiased, I love escape rooms, and if you're going to do an escape room, you need to invite me, no matter where it is in the country. And also, I like icing, so I tend to do bakery things. Now, I can't necessarily take 15 minutes out of my day every day. None of us can, especially if we have kids. But I always make a conscious time to schedule playtime every week. Saturday night is my night. My partner knows the kids are his, and I get to do an escape room. It's my time. And that way I've put it on the schedule. Do this, because if you're not conscious about your playtime, it doesn't have to be improvised. It can be scheduled. If you're not conscious about scheduling that playtime, it's not going to happen because it's not a priority, especially if you've never done it before, or it's been 5, 10, 15 years. So second, you could spend your entire life in your room, in your cave, coding away day after day, but why? I'm so glad you asked. Our innate instinct as children from birth is to explore. And this is to educate ourselves about our environment. It's to survive. It is a survival instinct. But one of the things that you do by exploration is that you grow your neural pathways. So not only are you releasing that work, for example, when you talk to your duck, I might be turning left. Are there coders in here? Developers? Okay. So one of the things that you do is you sometimes explore a problem from a different angle by talking to a rubber duck. And what that does is you are effectively telling your brain, I want to explore this problem externally by talking to this duck. I don't have any ducks today. Maybe someone else is giving away ducks. They should be. It's called duck coding. But by telling this duck, hey, I've got a bug in my program, it's not running, or I've got an incident, it's really hot, should I escalate? You're effectively getting your brain to explore that from another angle. You can put the duck away, that's fine. You can brainstorm, but your brain won't think the same. You can also do this with actual people. Chris, I'm having this problem. But Chris is going to respond to me, and maybe I don't want Chris's response. I just want you to listen, Chris. So I'll be very explicit with that in the beginning. So you can explore by yourself. You can explore with others too, and maybe that's more fun. You'll find how you are most efficient at exploring, but definitely get out there and explore. Now, some of the ways you can explore is to ignite that curiosity and never, ever let it go. I want to emphasize that listening is so important. I know I talked about this duck, but part of what you're doing is getting yourself to listen to yourself. I also abhor assumptions. I don't know where you're coming from. I can't say anything about you just by looking at you. And even if I ask questions, I'm not going to know everything about your history. So developing that beginner's mind, avoiding assumptions, listening, these are all vital in maintaining an explorer's mindset. Okay, who here knows how to ride a bike? Yeah. So I just moved here to the US from the Netherlands. I am an American, yes, my English is very good. But I just moved here from the Netherlands. For 10 years, I lived there, and I had kids there. And I swear they're born riding a bike. I am absolutely literal right now. They're born riding bikes. Everyone rides bikes. It's brilliant. But if you are in literally any other country except the Netherlands, maybe you didn't learn to ride a bike as a kid. And here's the thing. If you didn't learn to ride a bike as a kid, learning to ride a bike as an adult is exponentially more difficult, because from childhood to adult, we made mistakes, and some shitty person along the way laughed or called us stupid or made fun of us for those mistakes, and suddenly we think mistakes are bad, which they're not. Mistakes are good. You get up, you learn from them. That's the whole point here. You are not going to compete in the Tour de France until you learn to ride the bike. And so if you've never done something before, don't assume that the first time you try it, you're going to be a secret ninja expert guru. Embrace those mistakes that come along the ways. And the thing is, your pager alarm goes off, your code won't compile, whatever happens, the monster arrives. Take a minute, because somebody messed up, might even be you, and that's okay. And then break the problem down into small bite-sized pieces. Get on the bike, push gently, and when you fall over, get back up. Now, this is where the analogy falls down, because I don't know whether or not you've had a kid, their bravery levels are entirely on them and wildly disparaging from one child to another, and there is nothing you can do about it on their instinct. So bravery is one of those things that we have to cultivate, and that's hard, Because you're not brave just out of the birth canal. You may be able to ride a bike, but you are not brave. And it takes time to overcome an instinct like if I'm afraid of public speaking. The thing is that I have been public speaking I literally had a dance career. Maybe if you ask for a demo, you'll get one. So I've been on this stage for 30 years. Yes, I'm that old. I still get afraid when I come on the stage, but my bravery that I've developed still climbs me on the stage. And part of that is simple. One, be willing to be afraid, which is scary in and of itself, I realize. But once you are willing to embrace vulnerability, the other steps are easier. And the second one comes out of that. If you are willing to embrace your vulnerability, to say, I am afraid of this, it instantly makes you braver. It instantly reduces the power of the fear over you. Now, if you're a kid and you're afraid to go to the bathroom because it's in a big dark hallway, maybe you need to put some bright lights in that hallway, or your parent does. Maybe you need to hold their hands to go to the bathroom 10, 20, 30, 40 times. But eventually you get there, and that comes from practice, that comes from doing it anyway. So again, back to the last slide. When you get scared and you fall down and you are not as brave, get back up and try again. So I have a secret. Come here, streamers. A little closer. You are already a unicorn. Now, this is a term that is overused quite a bit, but I still love the term. Can't stop using it. A unicorn simply means that you are unique. You are the only one. You are youer than you. Go, Dr. Seuss. And when you're a child, there is no, oh, I want to be just like Sammy over there because Sammy has awesome long pigtails. Or, oh, I want to be Johnny. There's a little bit of that, but for the most part, you're just out there playing, and it's joyous. And we forget to do this as adults because other people are like, don't raise your hand because it'll look aggressive. Or don't ask for help because you'll look stupid. No. Be the unicorn, ask the questions, raise the hand. Go play. Now, the thing is that inherent in conquering the world, please use your powers for good. Inherent in conquering the world is if you just follow the steps, if you just play daily, weekly, plan the vacation, your brain will instantly start being like, whoa, I have this to look forward to. If you're brave, if you get back up, if you embrace your unicorn, you're going to conquer the world. And conquering the world may look differently for you than for me than for you. Conquering the world for me is that my daughter uses the toilet despite the scary hallway. Conquering the world for you might mean you get a promotion or you're no longer on call. Conquering the world for you might be, I win the lotto, which, by the way, is relying a lot more on luck and statistics, but that's another talk. And as I said, please use your powers for good. Are there any questions? I'm not sure I could do a demo. I've got a lot of
That was kind of awesome, though, to be honest. The enthusiasm we need around here. Does anyone have a question for Rain?
Yeah.
does not look like it. You got one? You're loud, just holler.
Just holler, and I'll repeat it for the stream.
So I love the idea of balancing, work and play. I even like better, taking play and actually putting it into work. Do you have any really good suggestions for like if you're doing, say if you're doing a scrum, because everybody loves scrums, right? If you're doing something, with a group of people, what are some good techniques to put gaming into work?
Okay, so the question for the stream is how can you incorporate play into your job and make it more joyful? And that's my job, actually. Not because I explicitly have gamify all developer relation, but because I am a gamer and I try to think of things that will make it more joyous for both the new person coming to the code for the first time and the person who has been like hardcore maintaining for a while. So one of the things I always say is look at Salesforce. So as far as education and repetitive behavior is concerned, Salesforce has killed it on badges and gamification of learning and whatnot. And one of the things you could do for Scrum, which is like a weekly cadence kind of reporting in on how far along you are on the report or the project, is you could pick a period of time and be like, what behavior do you want to encourage? Let's say it's bug killing. Let's say this month, it's right before release, we have frozen the code and we are releasing, and so our target this month is close as many bugs as possible. So you pick a month, and you say whoever gets the top 3 get number of bugs, gets a gift card to DoorDash, or whatever that is. And also, if you're going along with branding, for Cockroach, DoorDash would be right on our brand. DoorDash is a customer. For you, you need to think about and you know your team, what does your team want? Maybe they want a mini golf thing. Maybe you have another customer who offers something delightful. Try to keep it within the brand of the company as well. So, also, I tend to just look for opportunities to play. So a couple of the customers for Cockroach Labs are CockroachDB, are using CockroachDB for their games. And so I was like, why don't we have a stream about playing these games? And it'll bring awareness to the customers, it'll bring awareness to our project. These opportunities exist. You just need to actively, consciously look for those kinds of, that's very specific, I know, but that's what I do. I look for ways to play. I normally, pre-COVID, every conference that I would go to, I would arrange an escape room every night of the conference. And that was just part of my job. So look for it. It exists. If you prioritize it, you'll find it. If you don't prioritize it, you won't. Any other questions?
Is hands up or are you stretching? Stretching. I think that's got it. I really enjoyed that. Let's hear it again for Rain. Thanks so much, Rain. So we're actually pretty close to on time here. We're going to go on break for them to rejoin the rooms, and then we're going to hear more from our awesome sponsors. And then at 12:05, we're back in the main convocation for our final keynote, Refactoring with Observability, Novel Practices for Learning with David Larrabee. So see y'all then.